go live. Let's go live. I think we're going live. All right. All right. Looks like we are almost there. We are live. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Econ Major Explains. I am your host, Steve McGarry, and that was a pretty fantastic intro there. I feel pretty good about that one. But on this episode, I wanted to talk about gross domestic happiness. And this is in terms of something that I studied many years ago called happiness economics. And this is something that, once again, I'm not in affiliation with Andrew Yang or anything like that, but he's presenting a lot of really interesting economic proposals in his policies and, all the above. He's doing a great job of showcasing some issues and solutions to those issues, or potential solutions to those issues. And that's why I talk about it, because it's basically like a database of all of the solutions that could potentially work for economic issues. And that's why I talk about it. So on this one, I wanted to talk about the redefining of GDP, which stands for gross domestic product. This is effectively how we measure our output as a country, our goods, services that we're producing. As a country, we are all collectively generating GDP, gross domestic product. And when we talk about that, that is something that was created during the Industrial Revolution, where it was, if you got a strong back, you can go make a living at a industrial warehouse manufacturing shoes or whatever it may be, and you can create a living and support your family. And that was how it was for many, many years. And, Great Depression completely blew people up, completely ruined lives. And I won't go too much into Great Depression economic impact, but I will say that that whole time frame, the Industrial Revolution, was a pretty transformative time for the country. I did a lot of research on it back in the day, and it was a night and day difference when the Industrial Revolution came through. And the consensus now is that we are in the midst of another Industrial Revolution. First wave being the internet, second wave being AI and a lot of these different technologies that are rolling out on top of the internet. One of them being blockchain, wink, wink. And I do find that when we talk about changing GDP, we do have to take into account this next wave of a revolution, of a secondary industrial revolution to the first one, which was manufacturing, automation through big machinery, and assembly lines and whatnot. And we do need to take that into account for this next one. And it needs to change, because you can't use one type of measurement for a entirely different type of revolution. Like one revolution has one unit of measure, and a new revolution, like 100 years from the previous one, needs a different type of unit of measure. Just basic common sense there. And one of the things that has been proposed is just measuring happiness and measuring just overall mental health of people. And one of the issues that comes up with this is that it is subjective. When we think about measuring how happy we are, you basically have to send out surveys and use things that are, maybe neoclassical economics, where we're talking about traditional indices that are measuring the entire population, and then mush them together into a subjective survey system that allows people to say, like, are you happy? Yes or no? Yes, I'm happy. Just kidding. It's not actually like that. When we measure happiness, we talk about everything. We talk about access to healthcare. We talk about our ability to our consumption, whether that is a low quality of consumption or high quality of consumption. And what I mean by that is, are you eating fast food all day, or are you eating healthy? The quality of your consumption changes. And that usually has to do with socioeconomic levels. And socioeconomic levels change based on income, and income changes based on opportunity. So at its core, when we talk about measuring happiness, we have to change a lot of things in the system. And the benefit of this is the internet. The internet is the ultimate equalizer. It does provide opportunity to everyone with an internet connection if you can get access to it. So that, first and foremost, I believe should be front and center with a lot of this. When you have countries like France and the UK measuring happiness, gross domestic happiness, I think that it is a great use case for these types of subjective surveys. You're able to get a sense also for the neoclassical economics. You're able to find, all right, people's incomes are going up, because in the traditional sense, if your income goes up, you're happier, and that's just how we mark our happiness right now. As we say, like, oh, you're rich, cool, you must be happy. But the reality is that there was a study that came out probably, I don't even know how many years ago it was, but it said that there was diminishing returns after making $75,000 a year. People making $75,000 a year, that was the sweet spot for being very happy, or being happy at its peak, I guess you could say. And afterwards, it's just sort of a diminishing return. And I definitely think that there is validity to that, because the majority of places in the United States, despite places like San Francisco, where I just moved from, Silicon Valley, your Boston, your New York, your Chicago. Chicago might be closer to that. You might be able to live somewhat comfortably in Chicago for $75K. But regardless, your large cities, metropolitan cities, it's going to be very difficult there. But for the majority of the U.S., in Central America, in your flyover states, you're going to be able to live comfortably. And when you have that amount of cash to at least, cover healthcare bills, eat a little bit healthier, don't just stop at McDonald's every day, you have that quality of consumption can go up. And when the quality of consumption can go up, in theory, healthcare may or may not go down a little bit. Like, your cost of healthcare may or may not go down if you're eating healthy, you're getting exercise and things like that. So there's a lot of really interesting levers here, and there's a lot of really cool things that can be discussed. And that's why I wanted to bring this up, because happiness economics isn't really discussed at all. Very much, other than now that we have this policy proposal here. Once again, I don't always talk about politics. I'm not that into politics. I think that it's fun to talk about because it's being discussed on the big stage and in the mainstream right now. And when there's been studies done in France and the UK on happiness economics, or I guess not happiness economics, but growth domestic happiness, where they're sending out subjective surveys. How happy are you? How much are you making this year? Did it increase? Did your income increase? Are you, taking vacations? Are you taking time off? Are you around family? Are you more social? Just basically checking in on people's mental health. And it just seems, right now, it seems like not that big of a deal. But I do think that as we start integrating further into technology, it's going to be paramount to making sure that people are healthy. One of the things that I won't go down too deep, but when you look at things like Neuralink, Elon Musk's new venture, where we're implementing chips into our head to effectively have access to AI directly into your cerebral cortex, that is, if your mind's not healthy, then you're going to struggle with that. And the last piece that I want to talk about here is, obviously we're going over happiness economics, and I wanted to talk about The Sims. And this sounds a little strange, but The Sims video game, if you guys have played that, I'm sure a lot of you know what it is. But anyways, it's a simulation. You play a little character, and you have these health bars that you have to monitor, and you have to take care of your sim. And the sim is living in this little simulated world where you build a house, and they are happy in their house, and you have to make sure that there's a equal distribution across all of their little bars. So you have your happiness bar, you have your health bar, you have your fitness, all these different bars. And if you feed them junk, they're gonna get sick and they're gonna get sad. And if you don't work out, if you put them in a box in their house, they're just going to get sick. And there's a lot of really interesting cues about keeping track of your sim and making sure that they are healthy. They're working out, they're going for walks, you're getting them out of the house. And there was another YouTuber named Alex Becker who drew the comparison between these two. And he said that when people are playing The Sims, right when you're on The Sims, you're doing great, you're winning at the game. Let's say you have all your bars full, your health bar, your happiness bar, all these bars are green across the game, and you're like, yes. And you turn the game off, and then you go and lay on the couch, eat Doritos, chug soda, and feel terrible the remainder of the day. And this is something that is really fascinating to me because it is the disconnect between virtual world and real world, where you've just basically done this entirely for an imaginary figure. And then yet for yourself, who you actually live in every day, this like vehicle or vessel that you're in every day, you don't do it for them or yourself, which I find pretty fascinating. And I think it's something that hasn't really been studied very much, with that disconnect from virtual to real world. But that has to do with happiness economics, in that if you are managing your progress bars correctly, if you're managing everything, you're not stressed out about work, you're taking enough time off, you're relaxing, you're trying to be social with other people slash sims, you have an opportunity to have some time for yourself and to very much appreciate what you have. And that figure being $75,000 a year as the sweet spot for happiness, according to those studies, that is a magical number that people can shoot for, because it's a realistic number. Now with the internet, you can literally sell a course. Speaking of which, I have a course, link in the description. Go check it out. Shameless plug. But you can do many different things to reach $75,000 a year. That is a fundamental fact now that we have the equalizer of the internet all over the place. So I'm really interested in happiness economics. I'm interested in the proposal of making sure that we redefine GDP, or gross domestic product. I think that that is a fundamental change that needs to happen with this upcoming revolution. And let me see if I can actually find it. There's so many here. Let's see. I've already gone over a lot of these, but there are so many. Let's see. Miscellaneous. How about we do... All right. That didn't work. So, yeah, I'm not gonna go down too deep into here, but I will go here and go to the happiness indexes. So here we go. Surveys asking people to report their own happiness levels. This is how we measure subjective measurement, and includes levels of literacy, access to healthcare, political freedom, quantity of leisure. That was what I was talking about with vacations and whatnot, income levels, and pollution levels. And there is something to be said about, if you're living in an area that's completely polluted and just not a good area, you're not gonna be happy. So, another one I wanted to mention was the welfare of family members and the non-economic factors. Even accounting for a wider range of factors than usual, happiness will be affected by issues like social interactions, confidence, self-respect, religious beliefs, etc. So it's very, very, very interesting to see that we take into account pretty much everything other than the ability to feel happy. And it's arguably hard to measure. It's subjective. So someone can change their feelings around if they're happy or not, and that's perfectly fine. I do think that there's ways to adjust for people to be more excited about reporting their happiness, like literally saying this is connected to our country's. Let's see, my phone was just ringing there. Literally connected to the ability to generate more wealth as a country as a whole. I think happiness should be correlated to the success of our country. I think that's rad, and everybody should be doing it. So that is the GDH, and you can see here Bhutan, France, and UK have, to varying degrees, started using happiness indexes in measuring economic performance. Happiness economics challenges the assumption of neoclassical economics, which traditionally stresses more conventional economic goals such as economic growth, employment, and income levels. So I fundamentally agree that we do need to change because the world has completely changed since everybody was run into factories to work every single day. So that's pretty much it for this episode, talking about happiness economics. I hope you guys like it. Like I said, the link to my most recent course is in the description below. I hope you guys like that as well. A lot of you guys have been signing up. So shout out to you guys for all the support. And I'm going to be doing more of these in the coming weeks just because this is such a fun subject to talk about. I love talking about economics. And I hope to see you guys on the next episode. And if you like it, subscribe, like this video to show it to more people.